Hey, welcome back. How are you? Okay, so I always start that. How are you? Okay, so um, I love pressing that button. What I'm going to do is move in onto this, and I want to basically just collect it all together for the moment, and I'm going to move it off to one side so I can work on it. It's basically by doing this, I'm going to be able to move it off to one side. Go away, you. And once it's off to one side, I'll be able to move it around. I'm just going to change this to unlit, then I'll be able to see what I'm selecting as well. As you may or may not know, I'm massively colourblind, which is why I tend to work with some very limited colour palettes. But because it's saturation colour blindness, I also have problems sometimes picking things out. So, yeah. There we go. And I want to get this basic tower here and move it so that I can work on it without distractions and things like that. So, there we go. Because it's a nice piece, but it's primitive and basic, and we can make it better. Okay, and down here. There's a lot of stuff we're going to be able to do soon. Just going to make sure I'm selecting the right bits, obviously. Okay, next I'm going to move this just over to here. Whoop, there's a piece there. That is part of it, so I'll reselect it there. And what I thought was part of it is actually just a piece of dirt on my computer screen. Actually, it's not dirt. Believe it or not, it's super glue. I was gluing something and the super glue bottle literally burst and exploded and went all over the thing. This was a while ago, but you know what it's like. Okay, now I want to make a simple ground plane just to put this on. So what I'm going to do is just go to my content browser here, and I'm just going to pick a nice simple wall, again probably this one, because it's quite a decent wall, this one. Lie it down, just 90 degrees, if it lets me. There we go, just so it's literally falling into the ground here. Now I'm going to scale it on all three axes simultaneously, and then bring it over here. Reason being, it's a nice simple base and I can delete it really easily when I'm done with it. Okay, now what I want to do is, outside each of these I'm probably going to be having some lighting set up. I'm not sure if I'm going to set the lighting up or if I'm going to let someone else do that. But what I want to do for the moment is just turn my light back on. Just lets me see what I'm doing. And then I'm going to add my actor to stick a point light up here. And basically this just allows me to see what detail I'm working on and all the things like that that I need. I'll have one there and one there, and then the same again over here, I think, because I can delete these really easily when I'm finished with them anyway. But I like having the slight contrast of the light hitting these, so for me that's obviously quite important. And I'll bring these four round, a bit like a light dome, if you've ever used one of those in the past. There we are. This is just my own personal way of doing this. Obviously I'm not saying I'm right or wrong. If you have a better way of doing it, by all means do so. Okay, what I'm going to do is grab these first. Just here. And then here. Okay, and then holding down Alt, I'm going to bring them out just so they kind of half intersect, just to that point there. And then if I go around my model again, because we've got one on the other side, what I'm doing is I'm building support structures now. The idea is to make, we're basically taking the functionality of this and then we're going to start hiding it. I suppose the best thing to say is here. Well, not hiding the functionality, more giving it the appearance of form surrounding the functionality. Does that make any sense? No. Okay, we're going to basically rub our magic sticks until it looks good. How does that sound? A bit better? Yeah. You probably were doing that already. Okay, let's just drag this out. Push that in a little bit. Okay, and then I'm going to bring this over as well. Because it is really so much fun, just the Lego approach to level building, isn't it? Okay, and these now add support to these columns, as you can see. And we have the entrance and the exits set up and things like that. Now what we can do is we can look at basically adding some girder work in between these. So if I just hold Alt and bring this in, just shrink this down a bit, because what I want to do is have that in there. Now we can see that these aren't actually lining up quite correctly yet, so we can line them up. And whilst I'm doing this, there's an argument going on in another room about a sandwich. Fortunately you can't hear it because I'm using a directional microphone this time. Back in the good old days of the APU set, you used to be able to hear all these arguments about sandwiches. People used to write in and go, why is someone arguing about a sandwich? This isn't professional. Screw you, it's a sandwich. Okay, let's bring this down to about 1.6. No, that's 0.6, Chris. 1.6. There we go. 1.6 is a little much, isn't it? Bring it down to 1.5. 1.5 seems okay. But it's still a bit big. What do you reckon's next? Have you guessed yet? Take out your copybooks now. Now it's a little bit short on both sides, so I'm going to make this 1.44. And then that seems to be about right. Yeah, it seems okay. Let's just go over here and... oh, look at that. There's a gap. That's no good. 1.444. Still not quite. 1.48. Too big. 1.46. Just right. There we go. So now we have this with our girder. Just there. And I'm going to have two just there at the top, and then I'm going to copy them to round about there as well. And now if I duplicate them, hold down Alt and move them. There we go, into there. And then if I select all 8, I was about to say all 4, wasn't I? Dear, oh dear. It's the world coming to. So I select all 8 and go to my top viewport here. Stick it on wire. Hold down Alt and rotate it just 90 degrees. And start moving this into position. I think that should do it about there. Maybe a little bit more this way. Okay, let's drop back into perspective. Lovely. Oh, look at that. It's like being back in 1987. This is what TV used to look like back then. Okay, so these are in place now, so that's cool. Okay, so we know this is an access place, okay, and these are the external accesses. But what we don't know is really, you know, what's this all for and why. So this is a good opportunity for us to start building some detail into this for the player to enjoy. So let's have a look around whilst trying not to vomit from all the motion sickness. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my content browser again, just stuff it over here. This will give me a chance to just to see what shapes and pieces and things like that I can use. Because goodness knows, there's plenty here to be using. We can set our artists, or if we're doing it ourselves, we can set ourselves to go and have some fun building stuff from these later. I really like that shape, for example. And if you look, it goes into there. You can just scale it up and use it. It's really nice. This is good shape as well, look. If I just zoom in down here, I could literally bring this around like that and have like lights hanging off here, which always adds a nice level of detail to it. So there's a lot of options, but we really have to look at what was this built for, what's its purpose, why is it here? And for me, I mean, obviously this is a structural support tower, presumably something to do with fueling as well. So if it's something to do with fuel, we could do with some sort of a fuel area on the top. So let's find something that looks a bit fuel-like, shall we? Okay, so we have a few things here. As you see, we have these storage tanks, which I'll just drag out to there. And we have this, which is more storage tanks. And we have some machinery. That's going to be useful. Everyone loves machinery, especially when it does stuff. We have this, which is to do with holding the storage tanks. And then we have some barrels. Now, again, you'll remember from previous lessons when I talked about things like logical placement of barrels, why is it there, what's it there for, things like that. So these are things that we're going to be paying attention to. We can't just leave this like this, okay? I know some people would, but seriously, why is it here, what's it doing here like this? Okay, first things first then, we have this, which is presumably something to do with power generation, yeah? So let's turn it 90 degrees. Something good and heavy like this is always good to hide behind. We have this nice solid looking thing up here that we're standing on anyway. There we are. Now over here, where these are, and again, sorry if I'm giving you flyby motion sickness. Let's just bring this across. You can really just nail this down into here and bring it down a bit. Okay, so it's balanced on there. And then across. Just bring this piece out of the way. Like so. We'll just have it clamp in and just make sure we don't get any overlap of the actual main volume itself. That's quite important. Okay, now obviously here we have the barrel, so I'm going to move the barrels over here, and what I'm going to do is just turn it 90 degrees on itself. There we are. And this is quite a good shape to store barrels on anyway. Barrels make great things to hide behind. We'll have one there. Then we'll have another one here, but we'll rotate it. And then we're going to stack a third one on top like that. Again, we have like these three barrels here. So if we've got those three there, it's obviously some sort of a storage unit. So let's take this and bring it to a logical conclusion, in that we have to have this over here too. There's obviously going to be a lot of machinery here feeding into the main top area of the central tower, or feeding into guns or some sort of heavy weapon system perhaps, we don't know. Just bring that up a bit, there we are. Okay, now let's get this barrel here. Bring it to there, bring it across, and just get it into a decent position. Okay, and then bring it to there, and then another one along. Like that. So now we have these tanks, and let's turn them around. And then turn this one like so. Okay, so now these are standing there like that. We don't have any additional pipe work going in yet, but It's a good start. So now we can perhaps have some things come up off the top of this anyway, because I like this, but I think really it would benefit from having an additional inaccessible level. Or maybe the player will be clever and find a way of accessing it, I don't know. So go over here. And as we can see, that one and that one need to be lowered. There we are. Just get in close, make sure there's no nasty overlapping going on. A little bit there. It's not quite overlapping enough, i.e. it's not meeting. So what I'm going to do is just change this to 2. There we are. And I'll change this back to 4 again. And then all I have to do is just grab Alt. And these aren't lining up yet, so I'll just line them up. I'm going to switch this back to 2. 1. And 2. There we go. Okay, so we have these pieces now going along the top on that as well. I did want to have kind of a piece going across the top of this, so let's see what options I have. As long as I can make sure the player fits through here, this isn't going to be a problem. So let's go down a bit. And don't want stairs. A nice flat piece. We could even use these again, actually. Now I think about it, makes more sense. If I take this and this, and the pieces inside it, not you. Okay. So with these, I want to elongate them a little. So let's elongate them to 1.2. Seems about right. And again for this one. My old pal. I used to enjoy doing tutorials and then sending like screenies off to my pal Rob, who unfortunately passed away last year, bless him. And it was quite good because he was always quite a good kind of independent judge of what he thought I was doing. He'd tell me it was crap if he thought it was crap and so on. It's important to have someone around who's quite astoundingly honest, I think, when it comes to this sort of thing. Okay, so we have this area here, it's kind of bracketed off, so we have that, and we want a mount for some sort of a larger weapon that's going to be going in here. So again, I'm going to go into my content browser, just see if there's anything I can use temporarily. There probably is. Bunker wall, for example, is probably quite suitable. I could just make a giant gun barrel out of it after all. Ah, Mega Ring. Now, as I recall, this thing is enormous. Quite literally colossal. Although I could scale it down to a ridiculously small size. Although it is still colossal. I always quite liked the Mega Ring. I'm sure it's got some sort of a purpose, but I've never really understood what it was. Content browser, come back. Thank you. There we go. There's quite a lot of very large pieces here that you really don't want to be using because they're too big. Scrolling down, presumably whilst you have a little bit of a nap. Oh, that's quite nice. In fact, that's probably ideal for what I need. Let's just take it down so it's in the right area. There we go. Okay, and now what I'm going to do obviously is duplicate it. A quick 90 degrees. And again, these will give us the basic kind of mesh we need in order to come up with something fun later. When we pass it to whichever poor sod's actually going to have to make something from it. There we go. Now if I select this one and this one, because they're not quite lined up, and do that. Then I can bring these across to here. Just in this ring. You notice if I scale it, I'll have to reposition all the pieces individually, which is a shame because I want to reposition it slightly. I mean, rescale it slightly. I suppose I could have scaled it on the local, but you know, Captain Hindsight. I think I was mentioning him yesterday, wasn't I? Probably because I'd never seen that episode of South Park before. I'll go for years without watching it, and then I'll watch an episode of it, and I'll be horrified and amused at the same time. Although I still ban my children, obviously, from watching it. There we go. I'm the world's meanest parent. There we are. So that goes on there. Makes sense because we can work on building whichever gun goes on that at some other time. And now we have some points where we can start running pipes in and things like that. So, go to View, Browser Windows, Content Browser again. Let's go find us some pipes. Everyone loves pipes. Remember we did loads of stuff with these pipes before. I'm sure you remember the good times. After all, who wouldn't? There's one there. A little bit short. What else have we got? They're not pipes at all. Let's go down a bit. There. Lots of lovely pipes. And what I'm going to do is run a pipe out of this. See what we got here. This one's ideal. So start doing our editing of it. Okay, now with that there, just checking its position. I want it fairly central. And then down like that. And with our little elephant made, I'll see you in the next part.